Hey, it's Will Fountain and David Tinsley here with the Novice and the Pro. We're both at Lenders Cooperative, and this is the series where we're taking turns acting as the Novice and the Pro, where we just have a conversation about various subjects that we think can add some value to your daily operations, or perhaps help you become better versed in a subject. In this first series, we're talking about SBA. If you saw episode 1, we talked about the changes that were made in August of last year to the SBA's SOP. Essentially, to summarize it, we said that the SBA is trying to encourage and taking steps to allow lenders to participate in smaller dollar loans without so much burden on the back end. And one of those steps that they were taking was the eligibility piece of the due diligence off of the bank and bringing it back to the SBA. So, if you would, David, maybe expand on that just a minute.
Sure. Yeah. So remember, eligibility under the program, since this is it's a government program, if you want to rely on it, you follow the rules that the government set up for it, right? So that the SBA says that the business must be eligible. And part of that is what's called a character determination. The SBA's main requirement there is that the business owner, the people involved with the small business are of good character. That's historically been determined by them completing a form that's just called 1919, and so essentially the lender was responsible for looking at that form, reviewing it closely, and then sort of doing a little bit of a background investigation to make sure that that information seemed to be correct, that there's nothing that they could detect that was a mischaracterization or perhaps even not true on the part of that business applicant, to confirm that it was eligible for the program so that it could be, so that the bank could make that loan and have that guarantee in place. The big shift was that last year in that latest SOP, the SBA used some terminology, and I'll dig into that in a second, but they said the lender may rely on the information provided as true. And then they further expand it to say that if it's discovered later that information is not true, it will not be held against the lender. So that won't be used as some reason to deny that guarantee. Yeah. So you did your part, and realize that when you come to like the different levels of guidance that SBA gives you, there's sort of extremes on both ends. It says the lender must do this thing over, whatever, how it's described. In some cases, it says the lender may do something, or the lender should do something. And really what it comes down to is the may, it gives you permission, which means that the language exactly, the lender may rely on this information as true, right? But then it also follows it up with this statement of should not submit a loan that it knows is not eligible. And really what you're talking about is 99% of the time, you're going to rely on the information. It's going to be true information. You don't have to have that extra administrative burden of doing, the full background check and, look into every single thing in the past you can find. It's like the SBA is saying you can rely on it. At the same time, if you do happen to know information, this is sort of spirit of the program. This is for small businesses to get funding, to help spur the economy, right? To grow it and help jobs in the market. Just all of the good things that we would all be on board with. That's what this is for. If you know this is a lie, don't submit it. It just comes down to the spirit of the program. So basically rely on it as true. And the SBA is just asking, act in good faith. Don't submit the stuff you know is not right. But they're not going to use that to penalize you effectively.
All right. So what they're saying is you may trust the person, but if it's a egregious error, like just because they said it, don't trust them, right? Then you should act in the interest of the program. I can see how that would be a little nuanced for lenders.
It is, but I mean, it's the sort of thing. If you're in the market, right? You're in the local area. You're a community bank. You know the area, and they say, "Oh yeah, we're a hardware store that's been operating for 20 years over at the corner of West and Elm," whatever it is. And you're like, "There is no West and Elm, and I know there's no hardware store there. Don't submit that loan." It's that sort of like. That's what we're talking about. If you have knowledge that you can clear and plainly see that's not true, well, then that's when you're supposed to stop it. but otherwise, if you have every reason, and there's a lot of electronic resources today that are available, and the SBA is utilizing them. So in that case, if you
some of the fraud framework, right?
right,
Smarty Street.
and I'll tell you, if there is no West and Elm, and the SBA is not gonna, they're gonna catch it. Like that's part of it. They're using all these databases that they've built out and enhanced with technology, and that's part of their check in the background. They're gonna come back and say this doesn't exist.
Okay, hold on a second.
You see what
so because they're taking that eligibility, and if you miss that at the lender level, right, during your due diligence process,
right,
there's a good chance the SBA will correct that and then come back, or catch that, excuse me, and come back to you.
That will catch that. That's correct.
So
yes.
When they come back to you, what does that language look like? Does it say, "Hey, Will, you're a fast one on us," or is it, "Hey, you might want to check this guy"?
No, so it comes back with an error code. I mean, that's all it is. Like and forgive me, I don't actually know the error code that would come up for a fictitious address, but there would be an error code, and you would be able, as the lender, look that up and go, okay, so it says this isn't a correct address. So what they're assuming is that you entered the wrong address. Like, this does not appear to be correct. And if you look at it, go back to the business, say, hey, you said this is your address, and they might be like, oh, sorry, I got to go, and hang up, because you caught them. Or in others would be like, I'm sorry, it's the, I hear that all the time. It's supposed to be the, and you correct it and you resubmit it. Because if you can clear it, you're fine. But if they've caught it, they're assuming you, the lender, are doing your part. They're not treating you like the bad guy, but they are working with you to make sure the bad guy doesn't get through if you can help it.
All right. So to kind of sum it up then, you trust the guy or gal that submits the application. But you are laying your eyes on it, and you're acting in goodwill with the spirit of the program.
Right. That's
you
right.
should not submit it if you see a glaring error. But you also have the backup and reassurance, I guess, that the SBA is also taking a look at this and catching any glaring issues, so that we can prevent a year or two down the road, in the unlikely scenario that this goes south, that then they come back and be like, well, Will, there was not a West and Elm Street inside of your town.
Right.
And you clearly did
right,
this wrong,
exactly.
And therefore you're on the hook. Like, we've got some safety metrics and some safeguards in place. So you basically have a set of eyes from the bank, and then you've got a set of eyes from the SBA to ensure that this thing is eligible, and that you're okay to make this loan. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, in a sense, it frees you to run faster.
Okay, I like that. All right. Well, thank you for clearing that up. And again, this is the Novice and the Pro series. So we're asking questions that a novice might have, not necessarily somebody that's been in the business forever. But if maybe these experienced folks do have these questions and just hadn't heard them in a while. I'm trying to keep this into bite-sized chunks. If you have any questions or any subjects that we might be able to cover, we wish you would just email us, and we'll add those to the topics, and we'll try and cover them in the future. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.